All right, here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Here we go. Here we go. Let's do it.
It's playoff time in Texas. And this is jonesing for football. The road to the Super Bowl starts now. Hello, young Cody in Philadelphia, where the road to what pick in the draft are the Eagles going to have this year? The road to whatever that is starts in Tampa Bay, where and I think it actually will be in Tampa Bay, where the Eagles' Super Bowl chances will drown on Monday night.
Really, Mr. Jones with an early prediction. I love it. Picking the Bucks over the Birds. I have a prediction on that game. I'm going to save it for the end of the show, by the way. But I wouldn't count out the Eagles quite yet, Mr. Jones.
Oh, fly, Eagles, fly. And we are flying into what will be a brutally cold first weekend of the NFL playoffs as we record this. Young Cody here in Dallas. The Blue Norther has blown in. And by game time, when the Cowboys kick off against the Packers on Sunday afternoon, the temperature is likely to be near 25 degrees with a wind chill down lower than that, of course. I don't know how low, but
Wow.
I'm making up some of this stuff, but it's going to be very cold. But the good news is they're not going to play this in the parking lot at AT&T Stadium. We're going to go ahead and take it indoors.
Let's send it over to Bill Jones with the weather. Bill? See, you're complaining about 25 degrees. That's actually super warm. It's going to be like minus 30 real feel in Kansas City. It's
Uh-huh.
going to be like, I'm working in Buffalo, Mr. Jones. The high in Buffalo, the real feel, the high for Sunday is 8 degrees. And
You're
then
going to Buffalo?
I'm going to Buffalo, working
Oh,
for
wow.
NFL Network, working the tailgate scene. So I'm going to be out amongst the fans, and it's
Oh.
going to be really cold. So I've got a heated vest ready to go. I got my heated gloves. So wish me luck. If I don't come back next week, it was fun working with you.
Wow, I had no idea you were going to Buffalo. They talked about moving that game out of Buffalo because it's medically unsafe for mere mortals like yourself, young Cody.
There's no truth to that rumor that they talked about actually moving the game not happening unless something crazy occurs over the next 24 hours. But it's actually going to be more cold in Kansas City. So I'm worried about the crew that's out there, including my homeboy, James Palmer. Good luck to all those guys.
And when that wind comes whipping down the plain in Kansas City,
Mm.
look out. It
Yeah.
can be, I mean, just so cold that you could be headed to the hospital soon. All right, so prayers out to everyone going to the game. And by the way, I think you can get tickets for $77 to go
Yeah.
to the game in Kansas City. Would you purchase a ticket for 70, any ticket? Would you go sit in that kind of weather to watch a football game if someone paid you $77 to do it?
Well, I am going to Buffalo because someone is paying me. So, yes, I would do that. But no way in hell I would actually pay my own money to do that. But I do respect and admire the fans who decide to do that
And
because it is
what
definitely an
was just revealed here was how much NFL Network is paying young Cody to go to Buffalo, $77, but he has to get there himself.
Yeah, I got to figure it out. Hitchhike or drive or something. All right, Mr. Jones, you ready to dive into this week's podcast? We got a ton to talk about.
Yeah, and you got a plane to catch apparently.
I do.
Okay.
Saturday morning, early flight for your boy. All right, allow me to explain to our first timers how we split this podcast. It's into four parts, as we know. We'll begin by breaking down the Cowboys game this week, hosting the Green Bay Packers Sunday afternoon. Can't wait for that one. Number two, we'll do our must-watch game of the week, and there's plenty to choose from, obviously. Our third segment is Pressures On. It's your favorite segment and mine. And I'm talking about a head coach that hangs out about 12 miles from where I'm sitting right now. So that might be able to figure out who I'm discussing. And finally, we'll do our super wild card guarantees, We know mine will be correct, but will Bill Jones's? That's what we're saving for the end of the show. Everyone wants to know. So we're starting it off in Dallas, though, Mr. Jones, your NFC East champion, Dallas Cowboys. Welcome
Is
to
that
Pack.
is that hard for you to say? Is that
Kind
hard?
of. You predicted it. I did not. So, yes, I don't like being wrong. But they did win the division. They host the Packers. The Cowboys are 7-point favorites, Mr. Jones. So, give us your expert analysis on this matchup.
Well, here in Dallas, well, around the nation, the narrative is what? That there's so much pressure on Mike McCarthy in this game, and that if the Cowboys lose to the Packers, that Mike McCarthy is out and Bill Belichick is in as the Cowboys head coach. Have you heard that?
Yes, numerous times, all the time. Yes, of course. Yep.
Well, it's a big game, and the more I look at this Green Bay Packer team, the more cause for concern that I see for my Dallas Cowboys. Are you
Ooh,
surprised
okay.
that I'm saying that?
I'm intrigued. All right. Tell me
How
why.
much attention have you been paying to these Packers?
A lot, because I actually said the Packers were going to make the playoffs before the year, which was somewhat bold. And so I've been tracking them very closely to see if I was right or not.
How concerned were you when they were 2-5?
I was worried for my own prediction. At that time, yes, I didn't think they were going to make the playoffs, but they've won 6 of 8 down the stretch here.
Yes, they have. They've won 6 out of 8 down the stretch. Now, the Cowboys have won 6 of 8 down the stretch. The Cowboys have actually won 7 of 9 down the stretch. But what is interesting is the way the Packers have won the 6 out of 8 games down the stretch. And a lot of it has to do with that young quarterback, Jordan Love. And Jordan Love, you put up his stats the last 8 games of this season up against Dak Prescott's stats. And you can make the case that he's had a better second half of the season than Dak Prescott, slightly, and they're about even.
Yep.
We're talking 1 interception and 18 touchdown passes for Love the last 8 games. Dak's got 3 interceptions and 19 touchdowns during that time. They both have completed around 70% of their passes during that time, and their yards are around slightly above 2,100 for both of those players the last 8 games. But the amazing thing about the Packers is what offense is what they have done with such a young group of receivers.
Yep.
And as you know, because I'm giving you looks inside my big green notebook, I loved Christian Watson coming out. And Christian Watson was actually on a really good hot streak to start this 8-game run by the Packers. I think he had 4 touchdown catches in 3 games before he suffered another hamstring injury and has missed the last 5 games. And that's one of the keys on this game is whether Christian Watson will be able to play or not. But I hold in my hand here, young Cody, also the 2023 Big Green NFL Draft Scouting Notebook. And if you thumb through it, you will find a wide receiver in my book here that has more writing next to his name in the Big Green Notebook than any other receiver in this draft. And that would be Jaden Reed out of Michigan State.
Yep.
He
You
was
were
one of
high
my
on him.
favorites in this draft. Look what Jaden Reed, the 2nd-round pick, number 50 overall for the Packers, has done this season, along with their other rookie wide receiver they drafted, Dontavian Wicks, who they picked in the 5th round of this draft.
Yep.
They have both combined for a total of 14 touchdowns this season. And you take the 2 second-year receivers they drafted last year, Watson as well as Romeo Doubs. Doubs has 8 touchdowns this year. Watson 5 touchdowns before he was hurt. So they've combined for 13 touchdowns. And then that's not to mention them drafting 2 tight ends this year. One of them, Luke Musgrave, suffered a lacerated kidney and was hurt. Now he's back. He played last week. And then Tucker Kraft, their 3rd-round pick. They doubled up in the 2nd and 3rd round to get those tight ends. Yep. You look at their offensive line, they're starting 2 tackles who they picked up last year, who are 2nd-year players. And that would be Rasheed Walker, who came in for David Bakhtiari, who tore up his knee in the first game of the year. Rasheed Walker, 7th-round pick last year, is your starting left tackle, and Zach Tom, 4th-round pick last year, is your starting right tackle for this team. So it's an incredibly young team that has been able to get rolling here behind a first-year starting quarterback in Jordan Love. And the thing that should concern the Cowboys as much as anything is what Aaron Jones has done the last 3 games. He has 3 straight 100-yard rushing games, averaging 5.7 yards a carry during that time. And if you go back in his career, former 5th-round draft pick out of UTEP in 2017, he's averaged 5 yards a carry in his career. And so this is ordinary for him. This is the way Aaron Jones runs. Now, it'll be interesting to see if A.J. Dillon, who has not practiced this week, will be able to play. It doesn't look like it to me right now since he hadn't practiced. But they got plenty with Aaron Jones against a Dallas rush defense that has been not so good. And a lot of it is the personnel that the Cowboys are having to put on the field with their injuries at the linebacker position this season. But I think there's big concern for the Cowboys. The thing that I'm most concerned about for the Cowboys is the Packers. They're not supposed to make a run, and they're going to be freewheeling coming into this game. They've got nothing to lose, and the Cowboys have everything to lose.
Yep. Good points, Bill Jones. There's no doubt that it's obvious. You're talking about rookie receiver, second-year receiver, 2 rookie tight ends. They are the youngest team in the league, and the fact that they're even in the playoffs after starting so poorly is pretty remarkable.
Now, along those lines, how about look at the Packers and look at the Rams, who both make the playoffs this year, and both of them just had to turn over their roster, basically. And so it's a real testament to what you can do with young players in this league if you scout. I mean, there's 13 players that the Packers drafted that made the team this year, and 9 of them are playing primary roles on this team. And I haven't even moved to the defensive side of the ball, where they're starting a cornerback, Carrington Valentine, who was picked in the 7th round this year. And there are others on defense too.
What Green Bay has done is terrific. Let me ask you a couple questions though, Bill Jones, because I want to dig a little deeper into Jordan Love, because he kind of came out of nowhere. He started 2-5, like you said, and I think everyone was like, "Uh-oh, Jordan Love can't play." And then eventually he won some games. They were kind of under the radar games. They were against the Bears or the Vikings, so no one was really paying attention. But you laid it out: 18 touchdowns, 1 pick here down the stretch. And the one thing that I like about Love, and this is similar to C.J. Stroud, I mentioned this on last week's pod. C.J. Stroud really good on 3rd and 10+ conversions. I said that C.J. was second best in the league last week. Guess who's number 1? Jordan Love. He is number 1 in the league on 3rd and 10+ conversions. And so break down his game a little bit more from what you've seen from Jordan Love and what the Cowboys are in for this weekend.
I was watching him, just trying to get a feel for him, because I hadn't paid any attention since the Cowboys didn't play him during the season. And so this week, this morning, I went and I wanted to find, okay, how did he fare against playoff teams? And by the way, the Packers are 3-3 against playoff teams this year. The Cowboys are 3-4 against playoff teams this year.
Yeah.
One of the teams where this run started was back on Thanksgiving week. They beat the Chargers the Sunday before Thanksgiving. What opened my eyes up to the Packers when I turned on the TV as we were getting ready to eat turkey dinner at lunch on Thanksgiving Day, and I turned on the Packers-Lions game, and holy crap, what in the world are the Packers doing? They're up on the Lions here. And first play of the game, what'd they do? They went deep to Christian Watson in that game. There's one other game that I looked at. First play of the game, they went deep to Christian Watson. Kansas City game the next week, they beat Detroit, then they beat Kansas City at home. First play of that game was a jet sweep shovel pass to Jaden Reed that picked up about 10 or 12 yards. My prediction is, especially if Watson's playing, first play of the game, they're going deep to Watson.
Mm-hmm.
But to answer your question on Love, what I was struck by more than anything watching him is he doesn't appear to have a lot of velocity on his passes. I had to go back, and there were a couple of completions. I think it was in last week's game against the Bears. It was a deep out on the far sideline and then a touchdown pass where it seemed like, and they were probably 25, 30-yard passes. And it seemed like it took forever for the football to get there.
Really?
It was interesting, and I actually saw former Cowboy Isaiah Standback, who does work for the Cowboys now and also for CBS Texas here, and I saw him the other day, and I said, and I didn't lead him by saying anything about his velocity. I said, "What do you notice about Jordan Love and him throwing the ball?" And he said, "Velocity." That the lack of velocity on his ball, and people talk about him throwing off his back foot and so forth, but he does have good arm strength. It was interesting to me, and in a way, it was a good thing that he had enough confidence in his passes that he could make that throw, and it was almost like a feathery touch on a deep pass that made it a very catchable ball as well. And he probably and you see him on slants and so forth, and he does throw with decent velocity there. But I'm sitting there going, if he's not reading that coverage right, and he's throwing soft passes 25 yards downfield, I'm really surprised that he's been able to make it this long, having only thrown one pick in the last 8 games, from the little that I saw on film.
What I think is noticeable is his movements are extremely similar to Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Just the way he throws it, it's kind of a fling sidearm a lot of times. The way he'll play action, he'll roll out, just his body movements. I mean, it's striking how similar it is to Rodgers.
You do know who his quarterback coach is?
Who's that?
Tom Clements.
Yeah.
And Tom Clements was Rodgers' quarterback coach with Green Bay. He worked with McCarthy for 11 years, from 06 until 2015 season. And so it was in fact, Tom Clements is 70 years old. He played quarterback at Notre Dame back when Babe Laufenberg was a teenager. And
that wasn't too long ago, was it?
No, that's right. And he was in retirement, and it was a shrewd move by Matt LaFleur to lure Tom Clements out of retirement. And so Clements, the last couple of years, has been working with Jordan Love and with Aaron Rodgers there. So I think that probably has a lot to do with the similarities you're seeing between, and then, of course, Love being the Rodgers understudy here since 2020, when he was a first-round pick.
Yep. All right. One more question, then we'll dive into the rest of the league. But I hate that I have to ask you this, but you talked about it already. Mike McCarthy and the fact that he could be coaching for his job against the Packers. I don't think he should get fired regardless of what happens. But what is the talk down there in Dallas? He's been the head coach for now 3 regular seasons. It's 12 wins each year. But for some reason, there's chatter that if they lose this game, he could be replaced. Mr. Jones, your thoughts on that, please?
I'm happy you dismissed the COVID year, where it was not a 12-win season, because
thank you.
Mike McCarthy dismisses that year too.
That's fair.
So I think in Mike McCarthy's mind, he's coached here 3 years with 3 12-win seasons, which is the first time since the Super Bowl years too, back in the 90s.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous on the surface that you could be talking about a coach who's had that kind of regular season success and that he would be on the hot seat in a game like this. But the interesting dynamic on that, and I dismiss Belichick rumors, whatever. Okay, save that in case something happens here. But
I'm writing down the time.
But the interesting dynamic on it is with the Seattle opening.
Yeah.
And, Dan Quinn he was a hot head coaching commodity last year as well. He's going to be a head coach again in this league very soon. And he felt like the timing wasn't right. The openings weren't right last year. He was unfinished business here in Dallas. But now that the Seattle thing is opened, and with John Schneider, the GM in Seattle, who, of course, Quinn was the DC up there when they won the Super Bowl 10 years ago, that makes it very interesting. I think Seattle would be a place where he would like to go. That would be appealing to him. And so then Jerry Jones would be left with the question, okay, do I let Dan Quinn take that head coaching job in Seattle? I'm talking if you played out this scenario that they lost on Sunday, and now Jones is sitting there going, do I keep Mike McCarthy or do I let Dan Quinn go? And so that's the only thing that to me is intriguing about it, where you'd be reading Jerry Jones' mind on it. But I think Jones is very comfortable with Mike McCarthy as the coach. He likes it. And the other part of it is the improvement in the Cowboys offense this year. Even though they were a top-ranked offense with Kellen Moore calling plays last year, it's obvious the improvement in the quarterback this year. And as good as Dan Quinn has been with the defense, Jerry Jones knows the most important thing in this league is the quarterback. And so Jerry is just praying that he's not left with that, thing that
doesn't have to make that decision.
Yeah, right. Come Monday.
Well, you got to add in one other thing too. So it's Mike McCarthy, it's Dan Quinn, or one of these other big name guys that are out there. I mean, this is going to be a historic offseason with options for new head coaches. Obviously, Bill Belichick's on the market, Pete Carroll's on the market, Jim Harbaugh's potentially on the market. I mean, we've got some mega names here where we know Jerry likes to make a headline. Am I right? That's still true.
But Jerry, as you know, when he kept Jason Garrett and Jason Garrett was not having, he was having poor seasons as far as the postseason is concerned, because no one's had a good season in the postseason here in Dallas since Barry Switzer in 1995.
There you go. All right, Mr. Jones, we're going to break out from this Cowboys discussion. We're going to talk about the rest of the league. So the first thing I'm going to ask you now is your other must-watch game of the week, because we know the Cowboys are the must-watch game of the week. So we're asking about your other must-watch game.
Okay. Now, in a text message I received this week from the producer of this Emmy award-winning, well, it's not an Emmy award-winning podcast, but
not yet.
There's an Emmy award-winning person on it, and it's not me. My understanding is we were going to attack that Sunday night game.
Let's do it.
I don't want to steal your thunder if I misread your text.
I'm talking about Rams at Lions. That's my other must-watch game of the week. Is that yours as well?
Well, it will be, because I misread your text. I thought you said we're both going to talk about Rams and Lions. Now I can pick another game.
Nope.
But I'll pick the Dolphins and the Chiefs.
You want to do that?
I'll do Dolphins and Chiefs, because not only that is especially intriguing because of the weather conditions in Kansas City.
Yep.
And if they were playing in Miami, okay, and if the Dolphins were healthy, I would take the Dolphins to beat the Chiefs. But since the game is being played in Kansas City, and since the Dolphins have nobody left on their defense, I'm going to go with Kansas City in this game. The Chiefs obviously have struggled this season by Chiefs standards. They went 11-6, so by other team standards, they'd be having parades for them.
True.
But it's been obvious the difficulties Kansas City has had throwing the football with their wide receivers, the problems that they've had at the tackle position, the money they've invested in those players, and they were not shrewd moves. I didn't think so, but that was what the market was for tackles.
Yep.
Basically in the offseason, they had to sign somebody. But I think the weather will work in Kansas City's favor in this game. And because they weren't getting anything done with their wide receivers in good weather, so who's to expect them to get anything done with their wide receivers in bad weather?
At least the receivers
they
dropped the ball this week.
The Chiefs are accustomed to having their offense stalled out by by humans. What can Mother Nature do to change things? Well, Miami, obviously, like the Cowboys, they're a team that with Tyreek Hill and I assume Jalen Waddle's going to be good to go.
Mhm.
And with Devon Achane at running back, they're going to be neutralized by the weather. And so I love that. I don't love the Chiefs in this game, but I like the Chiefs to win this game at home against the Dolphins team that, I mean, you can't paint the worst scenario for their defense as far as their injuries to their edge rushers go. They've lost all of them.
How about this? If the Dolphins would have won last week, they would have hosted the Steelers. They would have been 7, 8, 9-point favorites. Now they're going to Kansas City and playing in negative 30-degree weather with that one loss. Amazing.
Yeah.
What I can't figure out about the Chiefs is how is it possible that this is the worst season under Mahomes? Again, 11-6 is a great year for most people, but it's Mahomes' worst season in the NFL. Yet their defense is second in yards per game and second in sacks. How is that even possible? This is like by far the best defense he's had, but for some reason, it's equated to the fewest wins during his time. So I can't really figure that out. I'm with you. It just seems like Tua and all that speed is definitely going to be slowed down due to all the weather in Kansas City. I love the Dolphins, you know that, and I love Tua, you know that. I just can't imagine the guy from Hawaii who played at Alabama and now Miami is going to go have a successful day in Kansas City when it's insanely cold.
And to your point, with the opportunity they had a week ago, that just mentally, that team had to be so defeated even coming to work this week that, and seeing the forecast for Kansas, it'd be different if it was going to be a nice night or even a 10-degree night.
Sure.
Or 20-degree night in Kansas City. But it's a night game where it's below zero and the wind chill minus 30. And they had the opportunity, had they just won last week, to be in balmy Miami for the game.
Yeah, they would have faced Mason Rudolph and
Right.
a TJ Watt less Steelers team.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Wow.
All right. I am going to do the Rams at the Lions. Thank you for saving me this game, Mr. Jones. We already talked about Mike McCarthy going against his former team. The only thing better than a revenge game is a double revenge game, and that's what we have in this one. It's Stafford versus Goff, traded for each other a few years ago. They only played once since the trade, week 7 of 2021, but this, the first time Stafford returns to Detroit. My thoughts on the Rams: truly an incredible season for Sean McVay for multiple reasons. Number one, very few people picked them to make the playoffs. Neither of us did. Coming off a 5-12 season with the second youngest roster in the league. Green Bay, we already talked about them, the youngest roster. The Rams had the second youngest roster. Plus, number two, they started 3-6. They looked in horrible shape, and they've turned it around since their week 10 bye, 7-1, with their only loss being an overtime defeat in Baltimore. They almost won that game. So how are they doing it? It's very simple. They're protecting Matt Stafford. They gave up just 34 sacks this season, 6th fewest in the league, after giving up 59 a year ago, which was the second most in franchise history. And Bill Jones, that sets up a surprise playoff win stat. I've got a win stat for you. It's back.
My, I've missed the win stat.
I knew you'd be fired up for this. All right. And it's on a topic that I know you love. The Rams had 6 players start on the offensive line this entire season. So they were very, very healthy. Guess how many starters they had on the offensive line last year?
I know they had double figures.
Yep.
Since you're saying it like that, I'm going to say 14.
15.
You know what? I almost said 15. I say, no, it can't be 15. I'll go 14. I came this close to saying 15. Give
Oh,
me
that would
credit
have been
here.
incredible, but still 14 is a pretty good guess. So 6 starters on the offensive line this year, 15 on the offensive line last year. And that shows you the difference in how this Rams team has turned it around. Will Stafford have time against a pass rush that's actually doing really well the last 6 weeks in Detroit? As for my Lions, and yes, they are my Lions, I had them in the playoffs last year, a year early, but I'm glad to see that they've not only met but exceeded expectations this season, finishing 12-5, comfortably winning the NFC North. And the big story for Detroit, Sam Laporta and Khalif Raymond both suffered injuries in week 18 to the knee. Their status isn't fully known yet, but there's an outside chance that one or both of them play, despite neither of them practicing early in the week. We know the depth of their skill positions pretty deep there in Detroit, but those injuries could slow down the offense that ranks second in big plays. Something to watch. Red zone efficiency. Detroit, third in the league in red zone. LA is fourth in the league in red zone. So 2 really good teams here. But I just get the feeling, and you guys probably do too, that 1 turnover in the red area could be the difference. Or maybe a coach elects to go for the win on 4th and goal from the 7 instead of kicking a game-tying field goal. You know, something crazy like that might happen. But after a lot of research and some thought, Bill Jones, I'm taking the Lions in this game. Favored by 3 at home. It wouldn't surprise me if the Rams win, but I'm rooting for Detroit to get their first playoff victory since the 1991 season. And I have a quick and funny story for you, Bill Jones. The Lions' last playoff win was January 5th, 1992. They beat your Cowboys in the Silverdome. And I realized this week, and I called my dad to confirm it, we were at that game. We were at the game in 1992. I had just turned 8 years old. We left early because my dad, the Cowboys fan, did not like to watch the game because the Cowboys got spanked 38-6. So we were like, all right, forget this. We went out to the parking lot early. I still remember it. And he did confirm it for me. So, but it's wild because since that game, the Lions have lost 9 straight playoff games, which is the longest losing streak in postseason history.
So you don't remember who started that game at quarterback for the Cowboys? It was the 1991 season.
1991
January
season.
92. Yeah.
Yep. It was, who was it? Steve Berline?
It was Steve Berline, but Aikman had been injured, and Berline led the Cowboys to 5 straight wins to end the season, including a playoff win against Chicago the week before. And Jimmy Johnson decided to go with Berline at quarterback, though Aikman was ready. And Aikman came in at the start of the second half of that game, and Aikman was so mad at Jimmy after that. And
I'm assuming the game was out of reach at halftime.
oh yeah, they had blown.
It was already over. I don't remember. I don't even think we made it to halftime. I think we just said, forget this. We're headed out of here.
Eric Kramer was a quarterback for the Lions.
I do know that.
Yeah. And anyway, back on the Rams in the draft and with the Packers, you know, looking at the Rams draft here.
Yeah.
They had 14 draft picks. The Packers had 13. And of course, the top guy that they drafted was in the 5th round, Puka Nacua.
Yep.
But at the time I loved it, and it's proven out this year. Steve Avila, the guard out of TCU in South Grand Prairie High School here in the Metroplex, was number 36 overall pick. He's had a very nice year, and one big reason. Yeah, a big reason that their offensive line has been shored up. But they have others that have contributed too. But once the playoffs are over and we dive into the big green notebook and get ready for the draft, I think it sheds a whole new light what the Rams and Packers have done with their draft classes this year and last year, that it makes me wonder how many draft picks just never get the opportunity to pan out. I mean, these are teams that they had to, by necessity, due to salary cap issues or whatever, they had to play these young players. But how many players just fall by the wayside and never develop because there's no opportunity for them with NFL teams. It's really interesting how, and it may change the way teams look at players and playing rookie players right off the bat. They are, many of them, even taken in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth round, are ready to play right now.
It's incredible. You mentioned Puka Nacua, 5th round pick. Kyron Williams is one of the leading rushers in the league. He was 5th rounder. Cooper Kupp is a 3rd rounder. So we kind of transitioned over the last few years to, hey, let's draft wide receivers in the 1st round. You got to have speed. You got to have talent. You got to have all these skill position for high level picks. The Rams and Packers are doing it the other way. They're actually going their later round picks, and they're still getting production.
Hey, one other thought on that, and I was talking with Mike McCarthy about it yesterday when we taped the coaches show. I think one of the reasons that the young players are getting more of an opportunity are the new rules that came along with COVID a couple of years ago, the injured reserve rules. I mean, because now you can put a player who suffers a hamstring injury that's going to keep him out for 5 weeks. You can put him on IR, bring up a practice squad guy who then gets reps, gets opportunities, and you have the option of bringing the other guy back if you want, or otherwise. But it's amazing the NFL went so long with IR rules that basically if you got hurt, you're out for the season.
Yes.
And this way, it's almost like the league has developed its own minor league system through its practice squad.
Yes.
Where they can develop players during the regular season.
Yeah, the expanded practice rosters have been huge. And now you can actually put veterans on the practice squad. It used to have to be a young guy. Only young guys could go on the practice squad. Now vets can go on the practice squad. All right, Mr. Jones, how about some pressures on? Who's feeling some pressure this week?
Well, so Mike McCarthy you can't count Mike McCarthy as the guy?
I mean, you surely could.
Okay, Mike
I
McCarthy.
think he qualifies, or at least nationally he does. You can tell me what they're thinking down there in Dallas.
I'm not going to go with Mike McCarthy.
Okay.
I went with Mike McCarthy a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to go with your guy.
Tua?
No.
I have so many
Tua
guys.
gets an excuse. Tua gets an excuse because he's playing in 2 below weather.
Who's my guy? I have a million guys.
Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts. Okay.
There's much pressure, as much of a load as the Eagles put on Jalen Hurts. How's his finger doing, by the way?
As of Friday, he hadn't thrown a football, he said, even though he did a little bit of throws, but he said he hadn't thrown a football all week.
So the pressure's on Jalen Hurts. He goes into Tampa and faces a fellow Oklahoma Sooner in Baker Mayfield.
I saw Baker last week. I worked the Panthers and Bucks game.
And Jalen already lost to a fellow Oklahoma Sooner, Kyler Murray, a couple of weeks ago. And so where is he going to rank among the Oklahoma quarterbacks? Say nothing about the pressure of the playoffs. The real pressure is where does he rank among Oklahoma quarterbacks? And
I'm really worried about that Norman Power rankings that's going on there. Yeah.
So anyway, the pressure's on Jalen Hurts this week, which leads you to your pressures on.
Yeah, so I'm here in Philly, and so I get to be surrounded by Eagles fans and talk radio and TV and all that stuff. And there is a little bit of pressure on Jalen Hurts, I will say that. But nobody has more pressure on them this weekend than Nick Sirianni. I think he's the only head coach that if they lose this week, they seriously could lose their job. Allow me to start for my case for Nick Sirianni. I'll say this. I don't think he should get fired, regardless of what happens. Since taking over in 2021, his Eagles have the 5th most wins in the entire league, 34-17. They have the 3rd most wins in the NFC. They're only 1 behind the Niners, 2 behind the Cowboys. And in his 3 years as head coach, Sirianni's led the Birds to the postseason every year. And oh, by the way, he was in the Super Bowl last year, and they were leading in the 4th quarter, Mr. Jones. I don't know how you'd want to fire that coach the next year, but they're talking about it here in Philly. Now, let me make the anti-Nick argument. something is wrong with this year's team. The defense is a disaster. There's no other way to say it. They're 26th in yards. They're 30th in points after being top 10 in both a year ago. Their offense has been nearly as frustrating, and not because they're playing awful, although they have the last few weeks. It's because they're playing significantly worse than they were last year with the same group of characters. Hurts, Brown, Smith, Goddard, Kelsey, Lane Johnson, all the guys who were successful last year are on the team now, and it's just not looking the same. The final thing I want to say, Jeffrey Lurie, he doesn't normally have a very long leash with these head coaches. Andy Reid went 6 straight years without a losing season. He had one bad year, 4-12. He got fired. Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl. He made the playoffs 3 straight years. He had one bad year, 4-11-1. He got fired. And so Lurie has a quick trigger finger. And and again, there hasn't been a terrible year for Sirianni, but losing 5 of 6 down the stretch might qualify as a bad half a year. And is that enough to get him fired? What I find interesting, 6 weeks ago, everybody in Philly thought Sirianni was going to be the best coach in franchise history. He was head and shoulders above anybody else trajectory-wise that's ever coached the Eagles. Then they went 1-5, and now pretty much everybody wants him out. And neither guy, this is what I think it comes down to. Lurie and Sirianni, neither guy wants to deal with an entire offseason calling for this guy's job. If the Eagles lose on Monday, we're going to go 6 months where every single phone call here in Philly is Nick Sirianni needs to lose his job. I don't think Sirianni wants that. I don't think Lurie wants that. And so because of that, Nick Sirianni's got some pressure this weekend.
So let's say they get beat by Tampa Bay. Who do you think Lurie would have his eye on to replace Sirianni if he made that move?
That's a good question. Historically, he hasn't really went for the big name. Like Andy Reid was not a big name when he came in. Doug Peterson was not a big name. I guess Chip kind of was, Chip Kelly. Yeah. But Sirianni was not a big name. So he has gone, his last 4 hires have been kind of assistant coaches with little track records. But they've also been offensive guys. So there is talk here that Bill Belichick would be a great fit for a team that's win now. Belichick's like the exact opposite of anyone that Lurie has hired over the last 25 years. He's older, obviously. He's a defensive guy. But maybe he could be the solution. Come in 3 or 4 years and just say, hey, let's go try to win it the next few years. They bring in an offensive mind to handle the offense. Bill handles the defense, turns them around. I don't know. That kind of makes sense to me.
How does that mesh with Howie Roseman?
No, not at all. But Bill did say he is willing to step away from the personnel side of things if he thinks that if people think that could help the team.
Well, it's not going to happen. So
right. I think the Eagles are winning the game. Do you like Philly this week, Bill Jones?
Oh, I think Philadelphia will figure out a way to win the game.
I think so too.
Yeah. Now, what would be interesting, what the Cowboys fans should be hoping for, the Rams beat the Lions. And that way the Rams go to San Francisco next week, and the winner of Philadelphia and Tampa Bay come here next week. Assuming the Cowboys beat the Packers.
Yeah, it's entirely possible that the Cowboys end up playing the Bucs next week. Think if Dallas could go Packers, Bucs for those 2 first playoff games to get them to the NFC title, which they haven't been
against the Rams, who go to San Francisco and beat the Niners. How about that? There's the scenario.
Yeah, that's the dream scenario right there for sure. All right. How about some super wild card guarantees, Mr. Jones? Let's review our week 18 picks. This was pretty good out of you. And I know that you've been heartbroken all week because of this. You had CeeDee Lamb with at least 8 catches, 100 receiving yards, and a touchdown versus the Commanders. He had to hit all 3. Well, he ended up with 13 catches, so check there, good work. He ended up with a touchdown, so another check, great work there. But he only had 98 receiving yards. Oh my gosh. Just
because they were winning 38-10, and so he didn't play the fourth quarter.
That's exactly right. You had to have been like, oh my gosh, just get him one more catch. That's all we need.
You're not giving me that.
I can't give that to you, Bill Jones. Now I will
He
say
had
this.
more touchdowns than I even said. He had more catches than I even said. But he had 2 yards shy of 100.
I'll say this. If I would have hit mine, I would have given you yours. So sorry. I can't give that to you.
What was yours? I don't ever pay attention to yours.
I know you did. You conned me into moving my prediction. So I had AJ Brown, 5 catches, 50 receiving yards, and a score. He had to hit all 3 of them. And as they say, what happened was a knee injury for AJ Brown in the first quarter. And so 1 catch, 9 yards, got hurt, and he never played again in the season. So it was a miss for me. Mr. Jones, you lead the season series 5-4. Maybe we should make these worth 2 points in the playoffs. What do you think about that?
No, I lead the series 5-4.
How about we make them worth 2 points each, Bill Jones? No. Okay, let's not. Okay. What do you got? Super wild card guarantee.
Okay, super wild card guarantee. Trying to remember what my guarantee was.
You want me to give you mine?
Yeah, you go first here.
Okay. I got to admit, the weather wasn't as bad when I made this prediction or came up with it in Buffalo as it appears right now. So this might actually not hit, but it's a good stat regardless. I'm going back to the receiver Stephon Diggs and the Bills. As I mentioned, hosting the Steelers. Diggs hasn't had a 100-yard receiving game since week 6. That's 11 straight under a hundo. It's tied for the longest streak of his career, but I think it ends on Sunday. Stephon Diggs has at least 100 receiving yards in this 8-degree real field game. And I don't know, the wind's picking up and there might be some snow. So I'm not sold on this one, which probably means it's actually going to hit. But give me that Stephon Diggs over 100 for a guarantee.
Okay, I remember mine now. I actually have a couple. And but I don't know how we want to do this. But
I'll give you a half point for each.
Well, it's kind of it's painting 2 scenarios here.
Okay.
Jordan Love's thrown 1 interception in the last 8 games, right?
Yes.
Cowboys are going to pick him off twice in this game.
Good one. Great one. Okay. I like that.
Here's my other one, though. It's in that same game. If Christian Watson plays 70% of the snaps, okay?
Okay.
If he plays 70% of the snaps, the Packers win this game.
Wow. This is a 2-pronged, 2-tier guarantee.
I'm not saying I'm choosing between the 2.
Which one do you want to choose? Which one are you picking? Or do you want to go?
I'm trying to think, can we do a 2-pronged one?
How about that?
One is based on Watson playing 70% of the snaps, which means when I look back when Watson was on his stretch in November, he was playing 75% of the snaps in their 3 wins over the Chargers, Lions, and Chiefs. Okay.
Yep.
And he had touchdown catches in each of those games. If he's playing at that level, playing 70% of the snaps or more, then the Packers are going to win this game. He had 3 touchdown catches against the Cowboys last year.
Yes.
But if he does, so let's say on my prediction or my guarantee is it's all based on whether Watson gets 70% of the snaps. Otherwise, my guarantee goes back to Cowboys are going to pick Jordan Love off twice.
How about this? Because I'm a nice guy and we're good friends, I'll just give you that as a bonus prediction. Let's say your prediction is Jordan Love gets picked off twice regardless. Okay. And if you get the Christian Watson one, I'll throw you the bonus point for that and you can get 2 points. How about that?
All right. So do you want a bonus?
Nope, I don't need one because yours isn't going to hit because the Cowboys are going to win the game. So I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about that one.
I like it. I like it.
Good work.
I like Christian Watson too, by the way, if you hadn't noticed.
I know, Bill Jones. I just wish he would stay healthy because every time you watch the Packers, he's on the sideline. And I'm like, bro, like you realize other guys are taking your job every time you're on the sidelines, and that's what's happening.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was quite an edition of Jonesing for Football.
Potentially our longest one of all time.
It's got to be. It's got to be. Babe Laufenberg is so worn out on his elliptical right now.
Babe is he's going to be in great shape. He's going to have like a huge six pack going on because he's been on this elliptical, just working it here for an hour. Good work out of Babe. Good work by us.
All right. So that does it for week 1 of the playoffs. I can't wait for the divisional playoff round, and we're going to see who's coaching the Cowboys next week or who's coaching the Eagles next week.
I know. We could both have coaching changes with both teams winning 11, 12 games. Things are wild in the NFL.
More likely the Cowboys. No, less likely. The Cowboys won't be playing the Eagles. The Rams have to beat the Lions for the Cowboys to play the Eagles next week. So
I think that's very possible. Okay. I'm going with the Lions, but I think it's really possible the Rams win the game. Therefore, that winner of Bucks Eagles goes to Dallas.
So we look forward next week to an Eagles versus Cowboys edition of Jonesing
for Football.